Hey, this is Laura May with Christian Casting, and today I'm here to talk to you about the real cost of becoming an actor. That is a loaded statement because for each of us, this journey is going to look different. So the first thing that I want you to put on your thinking cap, and I want you to open up your spiritual heart for this session, because this is going to be different for every single one of us. The cost of becoming an actor for somebody like Jeff Foxworthy, right? Or Chris Pratt is very different from your average faith film actor. So my first advice to you is don't compare your journey to anyone else's. That's because no journey is going to look the same. I promise you. You can find encouragement and you can find motivation and inspiration in all sorts of different journeys, but just know that the cost associated with you is going to be a personal one, and it's going to be a sacrifice that only God can predict and only God can reveal to you. Now, there are some certain things that I want to help knock out at the beginning. Some common misconceptions in the church are, well, if God has given me a talent, then I ought to just be able to walk in and become an overnight success because God has called me to this and God has made me able to do it. There's a little bit of truth to that. But if God gave someone a natural talent with baseball or a natural ability to sing, that doesn't mean that somebody's just going to come right to their front door and sign them to a lifetime $1 million career without any effort on their part. And sadly, in the film and entertainment industry, especially the faith-based industry, a lot of Christians have that misconception that if I want to do it for God and if God has made me good at it, then I shouldn't have to invest anything. And that's so wrong, because we would not expect that of any other field of professionalism in the world. I would never let someone operate on my brain simply because they were a Christian and God had called them to medicine. I would perhaps question their credentials multiple times over if they were going to cut into my head. If someone were to be flying an airplane that I was going to fly on, I would want to know that I would trust that any profitable, reputable airline would have caused their employee to go through a very certain and strict amount of training in order to be able to sit in that position, because I'm putting my trust in that position that they've already done what it takes. So when we look at things from real estate to medicine to big league sports to platinum award-winning musical artists, there is nothing that we do. If somebody's going to come put a floor in my house, or they're going to fix the plumbing in my bathroom, I want somebody who has done their due diligence to know the work that they are doing. So if you wouldn't trust someone with no experience to do your plumbing, much less your roof or your brain surgery, I'm not certain why the expectation so often in Christian film and Christian music and Christian anything is that there's no engagement, there's no investment required. So in that, just know that there is a cost of your allegiance to the Lord. You surrender then to His calling and His path for your life. So that's the number one cost, is you're saying to the Lord, my life is no longer mine. You can have it to do as you see fit. That's the first cost that you're going to have. Now, if God blesses that and then begins to continue to guide your journey and say, yes, thank you for giving me your life. I am going to give you this path. I'm notorious for saying that your talent defines your mission field. So if you have a gift, I firmly believe that it is only given to you because that is supposed to be what's putting those steps in place for your mission field. God has given you a dream, because at the end of seeking that dream, those will have been the people that you were supposed to encounter, the lives that you specifically were supposed to touch for eternity will have been met on that path, born through your dream. So it's a very complex process, but only if you try to map it out right now for the rest of your life, it would be undeniably impossible to do that. Now, right now, what you can say is, Lord, here's my talent today. How would you have me use it? And then you wake up tomorrow morning and you do the same thing, and you do the same thing the next day and the next day. And all of a sudden you have several weeks, several months, several years behind you of one day at a time, picking up your cross daily, surrendering to Him, saying, God, what would you have today? Now, today it might be, go over and talk to that person in the grocery store. And you're like, why? But you've surrendered yourself, and then you get talking. And that person is a filmmaker, and they're scouting out a location. Crazier things have happened, and similar things have happened just because you're obeying the prompting of the Holy Spirit. And so your journey, again, don't try to make it look like anybody else's. Daily surrender and say, God, what is this going to look like for me today? So another cost associated is going to be good headshots. You hear probably every video that we make, you're going to hear the word headshot, you're going to hear the word resume, you're going to hear submission, because that's just typically how the journey goes. If you do not have quality headshots, I begin to challenge you right now to seek out quality photographers, look up photographers in my area, and look at their web pages, look at their Facebook pages, read their reviews, see who's really happy with them. Headshots are a very different type of photo than any other photo, so make sure that you're looking specifically for a reputable headshot photographer. So if you, earlier on, we talked about having a talent and just believing that God will, overnight success, sign you into a lifetime of this. If you think about a child who is perhaps a baseball prodigy and they're fabulously talented and just insanely gifted with baseball, and their parents were to show up at a field one day to open tryouts and say, well, here's my son, and they go, well, does he have any cleats? Well, no, but he's gifted. Well, does he have a ball glove? Well, no, but he's called by God. Well, does he have a hat? I mean, it's kind of sunny out. How's he going to see anything? Well, no, I believe that this is God's purpose for his life, and so we're believing that all things are possible and that God is going to make the way. We would look at the parents of a young baseball prodigy and go, well, that's a little bit ridiculous, because why aren't those pieces in place? Because if God has called you to this and you're going to steward well that talent that he's given you, then you're going to take what he gave you, like the parable of the landowner, the master, who gave certain talents to 3 different people. To one he gave 1, to another he gave 2, and to another he gave 5. The one he gave 2 went out and invested those 2 talents and made them 4. The one that he gave 5 talents went out and invested and made 10. The one buried it and said, well, master, I know that you reap where you don't sow, and so I kept it safe. God has not called us to keep our talents safe. God has called us to step out and multiply those talents he gave us. So how do we multiply? By having the right tools. So if you don't have a good headshot, it's like showing up to play ball without a glove. If you don't have a resume, it's like showing up without your cleats. If you don't have a reel, it's like showing up without your sunglasses or your hat. Like, there are certain things that you just, out of respect for the industry as it functions, that you really need to have in place. Now, if you are in the process of getting those things in place, awesome. On another video, we talked about having a great photo of you, a simple background, very simple clothing, natural makeup, your hair as you would normally wear it for an audition. If you have, the best that you can offer is you ask a friend up against a white or a beige wall or a simple background, say, hey, could you take a good quality photo for me? And that's all that you have. Here's the thing, God is not going to ask you to invest what you do not have, but what he will do is he will reward that investment. When you have given what you do have, he will reward that and double it back. So maybe that one photo isn't going to get you a paying job, but maybe that one simple photo and that act of faith in saying, well, this is the best I have right now, will get you your first non-paying job or your first non-speaking role. So you take these steps in order as God has ordained them and as he supplies. Dallas Jenkins is one of my favorite filmmakers, and he is known for saying, all we do is provide the loaves and fishes. We let God feed the 5,000. And if you have witnessed any of his recent success with his series called The Chosen, you will see that his biggest success actually came off of his biggest failure. He was almost ready to quit, and God said, no, it's not time yet. But after that failure, he said, all I had left to give God was my loaves and fishes. But God reminded me that's all I'm asking for. And so out of that, he, in desperation, provided his church this little project. And on that note, I want to encourage you, if you're serving in your church right now, do not ever diminish the work that you are doing in the local body to serve God. Because if you look at the international success of The Chosen right now, it was birthed out of a project done for his church, where he was serving faithfully with all he had left. He said, this is what I've got. And God said, that is all I need. And so for the God who fed the 5,000, I encourage you to give the gift that you have right now to God. If you have a couple $100, say from Christmas or a birthday, and you want to invest that in headshots, it's an excellent investment. So some of your cost of being an actor is going to be that. Some of the cost is going to be time. I have people ask me often, how is it that you get to do all these films? Well, I will drive 1,000 miles with all of my children, and that's another story in itself. That is a God-led thing. So don't everybody just say, well, pack up the kids and go. It's a very special calling that I'm blessed to live, but it's not something that's typically acceptable. So in that, just know that sometimes it means getting up at 2 a.m, and your cost might be a sacrifice of your time and energy. You may drive for 5 hours or 10 hours, and you may sleep in your car, or you may bunk with a buddy in a hotel that you've split the cost with. There are costs associated with travel and lodging and gas. Sometimes you may take a flight. We had a couple of people who flew from several states away to take an unpaid speaking role in one of the last film projects that I was working on, simply because to them it was worth it. They saw the project, they saw the heart behind it, and they said, it's worth an investment of our time. We know God is going to do mighty things through that project, and we will pay our own airfare. We will pay our own lodging. We have to be a part of that project. But that's something very specific that God laid on their heart. So as you're considering these costs associated with being an actor, know that, once again, these need to be bathed in prayer. Once again, you need to be seeking God's heart first, because there may be costs that He will ask you to take or to make. There are going to be costs that God says, no, I'm not going to require that of you. If you look at another type of cost, look at The Passion of the Christ by Mel Gibson. Jim Caviezel, have you ever read his story? If not, I challenge you, as soon as this video is done, Google Jim Caviezel, Passion of the Christ, story, testimony, anything, any keyword like that. And I want you to really ponder what his cost was. Not only being ostracized from Hollywood, but physical things happening to him during the filming. Wild. I'm not going to give it away because I know you're going to go and read it after this video, but I really challenge you to look that up. Look up recent articles by Cameron Arnett, or about Cameron Arnett of the Kendrick Brothers Overcomer. And everyone from Fox to CBN to the Christian Post, everybody was doing this story about the cost, not only that he had given early on in his Hollywood career, but also the cost as an actor that he took stepping away from the industry. Sometimes our cost as an actor is the moments that God is going to ask us to step away. And we really need to consider those just as much an investment toward our journey as it is the paying it forward, taking a step forward. If God asks us to take a step back, then we will need to be willing to pay that cost as well. So getting a good reel, if you have clips of yourself doing video from different projects, that's great. If you don't, go on to the Christian Casting community page on Facebook. We're all the time doing monologue challenges, just little ways to get you experienced in different emotions, different settings, different character types. Get online and look up monologues that are family friendly, or do a scene from your favorite film. Have somebody tape it. Make sure your lighting is good. Another cost of being an actor, if you're serious about it and you've already got your headshot and your resume in place, and you've already booked a couple projects, but maybe you're waiting on them to be released because the project's still hidden in film festivals and you can't get that footage yet. Think about a good lighting setup or a green screen to go in the back. Ask God what He would have be that next piece in place. What investment of your time and your money would God have for you to do next? Because sometimes He might be saying, hey, yes, I want you to put a reel together, but I want you to put your own content together. And that can be the price of being an actor, is spending time committed to doing whatever step God has called you to do. And that might be going out, finding your own material, writing your own material. If God has called you to be creative, there's a really good chance that there are stories within you, your experience. No one has lived the life that you have lived. Only you could develop some of these monologues and some of these scenes from your own personal experience. So in that cost, ask God, what have I already paid that you would have me then be a valuable piece of what I'm doing today? And it happens all the time where someone will book a role just because they used to be. Quick story. I was talking with a man who had done construction his whole life, and he wanted to go over into the acting world. And he was in VIP interviews. He was an actor that I had worked with, and he said, well, I want to go do an interview with this person, so I'm going to tell him about how I want to be an actor. I said, okay, that's great. So he went over there and he was interviewing, and this guy says, well, I see here that you build homes. He goes, well, yeah, but I want to get away from that. And he says, well, no, but I mean, what kind of homes did you build? And he says, well, and he's kind of dismissing his previous experience. And he says, well, I can build this and this and this type of home. And so he says, interesting. Okay. But he says, but I really want to get into acting. I really feel like God has called me to this. And he says, I'm curious, can you also do this? And do you do flooring too? Or do you just do the outer? He says, like, no, I do the inner. And so this guy's asking more and more questions. He says, listen, apparently you're interested. So I can build you a house from the ground up, foundation to the roof, and I can even build you the furniture that goes in it. He says, great. So as he's trying to dismiss this previous experience that he has and this journey God had called him to previously, the guy says, hang on. It's the funniest thing because we're actually looking, he says, I work with HGTV, and we're actually looking for someone to host a new show about home building, and I think you might be perfect. So I want to remind you that if God has called you to this area of your life right now, right here, right now, that he doesn't dismiss the experience that you've had in your life. If you have had wonderfully joyous experiences in your path, those are to be counted before, because God put those in place specifically before now for you to use them. If God has put you through some very painful times in the past, just know that he is going to use those. He takes broken things and makes them beautiful again. He is the one that takes the ashes and makes something beautiful from them. He is the one who can take this kaleidoscope of pieces and shattered glass on the ground and make a beautiful mosaic out of it. That is the type of God that we serve. So no matter what your background, don't ever discount the journey that God has led you through up until this point, and know that that's going to be just as important part of your journey as it is from here forward. You need to consider from here backwards, and just ask God, what pieces of my past can you use to propel me forward? What can I relive that's going to help me in this moment to be a more valuable, more well-rounded, more an actor that is able to be stretched, because you have actually lived that. You've been a person who has been stretched. Thank God in this moment for that, and know that that is a very valuable piece that perhaps you've already paid 10 years ago or 20 years ago. You've already paid that cost of being an actor. So here's one last piece of encouragement that I'm going to give you, something that you want to pay as a price of being an actor, is a committed relationship with Christ. You cannot ask him to guide this journey if you are not daily seeking him in prayer and Bible reading and in daily surrender to what he has for you today. And it's a lot of fun to be out on the field playing the game. I want you to be equally as excited as the time that he puts you on the bench, because if you are a missionary called to this field, if you are going to be an actor called by Jesus, then he is in charge of the game. He is the director. And if he has you sitting on the bench, then you say, Lord, thank you for this opportunity. Who is it? Look around, open your eyes. Who is it that you would have me touch in this moment? Who needs to hear about what you've done in my life? Who needs that right now? Because again, your talent defines your mission field. And I need you to be faithful off the field as much as you are on the field, because I think that's where a lot of actors get discouraged, is when God pulls them out of the main game, they go, well, now what? Well, now what? Well, now now all I'm doing is waiting to get put back in. And we've totally missed God's purpose. If you look at Joseph's path to Egypt, if you look at David's path to the kingdom, if you look at Esther's path to saving the Israelites, saving her Hebrew people, it didn't look anything like you would have expected. And it required a lot of time being off the field, a lot of time being placed in positions that you wouldn't think ever looked anything like where they were going, but it was the exact and the quickest and most effective path that God had for them to get there. So as you consider the cost, ask God what he might require of you, because it might be very different person to person. In fact, I can guarantee you that it is. So in this journey, there are certain tools that are expected. Your headshot, your resume, your reel, availability of your time, ability to travel, expertise in being able to play a range of characters and emotions. All of those are your associated costs that you can expect. But along with those expected costs here in the industry, I want you to also consider everything else that we've talked about. And that is the difference between you as a Christian actor and then perhaps an actor out in the world. It's not supposed to be the same. So don't expect it to be the same. Ask God, what would you have me pay forward? What would you have me invest? And please, Lord, bless the investment like you did the feeding of 5,000, like you did the parable of the talents. Lord, please take this gift that I offer, all that I have, and as you give me back more, allow me to invest more for your glory. This is Laura May with Christian Casting and the Cost of Being an Actor.